Welcome everyone to the Introduction to Streamwise webinar. This meeting is being recorded and you all should have received that pop-up notification that that's the case. We hope to be here talking with you for about a half an hour, but then would be available to stay on if anyone has any questions. We will be running this as a webinar, so feel free to keep your cameras off and muted if you're more comfortable doing so. If there's noise or feedback during this, I will be muting people's microphones. My name's Lauren Jeunesse. I work for the Lake Champlain Basin program, and I'm currently serving as the coordinator of Streamwise. I'll hand it over to Dana for his introduction.
Hi, I'm Dana Allen, Fluid State Consulting. I've been working with Lauren and the rest of the Streamwise project team for the past couple of years, developing the protocols in the program. So happy to be here today. And then I'll pass it off to Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam Haywood. I'm from the Image Farm. We created the brand identity and outreach materials for Streamwise to help people visually recognize the program as it continues to get out into the world.
That's right. Thank you. My name's Holly Greenleaf. Happy to be here. Also part of the project team that helped to develop this program, and involved in all parts of program development. And I'll pass it off to Lauren for talking about our partners with this project.
Thanks, Dana, for pulling up to the slideshow. All right, next slide. So we first wanted to start off this webinar with a thank you to all of the partners who helped grow Streamwise since its inception. It was originally an idea by Will Eldridge, who's an aquatic biologist at the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department. He proposed an idea similar to the successful Lakewise program in Vermont, but geared towards landowners along rivers and streams. So that idea was approved by the Lake Champlain Steering Committee and put out to a bid in 2020. And Dana, Matt, Holly, and Pam were the consultant team that were awarded funding to help us develop the program. We want to thank all of the members of the Project Advisory Committee and community partners who helped us in 2020 and 2021 to develop the program material, and Friends of the Winooski River and Ausable River Association for piloting the program last year. And on the screen, you can see a list of 9 organizations that received funding to do Streamwise this season in 2023, and we want to thank them as well.
So we'll start off with zooming out and talking about what is Streamwise. We're really excited to officially launch this year with all of you community partners to bring Streamwise out into your regions. And so you can see from our mission statement here, the goal is to inform property owners along rivers and streams in person and also through media. So it's a kind of an awareness campaign and also an award program that works on the ground. And we incentivize communities by awarding property owners who have really good riparian buffer practices on their land. And we are working to both protect existing healthy riparian buffers and also to help people enhance or restore cleared or degraded riparian buffers on their properties. And this is to protect and enhance water quality, habitat, and also bolster flood resilience in across the basin, and also climate resilience. So this is non-regulatory, it's completely voluntary, and so landowners have to want to be involved. And we target residential properties, people that live pretty right on streams and rivers, and in all different areas, urban, suburban, rural. And we work to leverage social marketing, so using social media, print media, various ways to educate and interact with people to raise awareness for the importance of healthy buffers along our waterways. And we also want to give people the tools they need to improve their vegetated stream and river buffers. You can see from this flow chart, it's a cyclical process by spreading the word through various modes of outreach, getting people interested in having their property assessed, and then you as partner organizations conducting desktop assessments prior to going out in the field, going into doing field visits, assessing the property, seeing kind of how they shape up in terms of the Streamwise criteria, as well as deliver key messages, an opportunity to educate property owners. And then if they receive the Streamwise award, that's great. And everyone will get a follow-up report. And a property owner may need to take some additional steps before they reach the Streamwise award level. And so we communicate, we connect landowners to local resources, to technical assistance sources if that is necessary. And then from there will be maybe a reassessment or follow-up, and we'll try to celebrate the people that do get awarded, spread the word, and engage, recruit even more participants. So next slide here. This program is based on social marketing research on environmental behavior change that found that consistent messaging that describes specific actions and the benefits of that action has really positive effects on behavior change. So for helping people to adopt practices and management that is really good for their streams and rivers. And then also, this research found that seeing other people take action, neighbors in the community, and be recognized or awarded for those actions also has significant impacts on helping people to adopt good practices and be stewards of their properties, of their streams, their rivers, their watersheds. Next slide. So the driving forces that brought you Streamwise here today is in part the significant amount of phosphorus that comes from stream bank erosion and is carried into Lake Champlain, causing a whole host of water quality issues. The basin being across 2 states, 2 countries, New York, Vermont, Quebec, there is a lack of consistent regulatory protections for riparian buffers. And so this non-regulatory program the aim is to kind of fill those gaps and create cohesion across the basin. And there also is sometimes in some areas a lack of resources for small private property owners to restore their buffers. There are many amazing organizations like you all that provide these resources, but we're trying to kind of connect all those partners and organizations and help provide this support for property owners along rivers and streams. This is also modeled after the Vermont Lakewise program, the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, Lakes and Ponds Department, and the success that was seen by engaging lakeshore homeowners through the Lakewise Award, and also the efforts that was the ripple effect of the Lakewise program of people improving and restoring and revegetating their lakeshores. And yeah, and so we're leveraging existing programs like you to help spread this program across the basin and give you a effective and usable set of tools to do so. Next slide. So who is it for? As I said, Quebec, New York, Vermont. The Streamwise assessors will be you, river associations, conservation districts, staff from local watershed organizations, all who are well positioned to build trust and community amongst the watershed neighbors, and to act as a bridge to funding and project resources. So connecting property owners with local resources, local funding, technical expertise, and that kind of thing. And yeah, participants, mostly smaller private properties in really anywhere across the basin that live along rivers and streams. Next slide. And so kind of bringing it onto the ground, what we're trying to create is ideally at least a 50-foot wide naturally vegetated riparian buffer. In some settings with small parcels, 30 feet may suffice, but that depends on the property. And we're looking for mostly native vegetation and naturalized vegetation. So not highly like manicured types of vegetation or gardens. And this is multi-tiered vegetation. So whatever is naturally occurring in this area along the river, or used to be naturally occurring, we're aiming to have all those tiers from canopy to understory, shrubs, herbaceous perennials, natural duff layer, leaving woody debris, all the ingredients of a healthy ecosystem. And then really limiting the amount of development in the buffer, whether that's impervious or pervious cover. So impervious could be like patios, buildings, pervious being like lawns, gardens, things like that. And disconnecting hydrologically that runoff from development in the buffer to the river. So slowing it down, spreading it out, and infiltrating it before it reaches the stream. So this program, where the aim is to be really inclusive, so still allow people to access their rivers and streams and live with a healthy buffer. We're also working to maintain really high integrity of riparian buffers. So that's kind of the balance we're trying to strike, is inclusivity and also a high integrity with healthy riparian buffers, and to protect water quality. And it's really based on being an educational program, teaching property owners simple practices that go a really long way, and being really supportive in that and encouraging. Next slide. And I'll just go quickly through this because Dana will go a little bit more in depth with, but the three primary criteria are the buffer width, the buffer zones, different management strategies within each of these zones, and then also the buffer vegetation, what is growing. Next slide. And then once that assessment occurs, there's a follow-up with either the Streamwise award, potentially if they achieve that, and also a Streamwise report to all landowners outlining what was good things that could use improvement, and any next steps to take to improve their riparian buffers. Next slide. So today, this is the outline of what we're going over: the branding, communications, and local outreach, the desktop assessment, the field assessment methods, the landowner follow-up, and then best management practices for streams and rivers, and further information, as well as our timeline and next steps in this process. I'll pass it on.
Okay, hi, this is Pam again, and I'm with the Image Farm. We did the brand identity and outreach materials. And here's a little bit about our materials, methods, and best practices. Next slide, please. These are the methods to use to continue to get the word out about the program. Streamwise social efforts are focused in Facebook and Instagram. And other ways to share information about Streamwise are through word of mouth, as well as traditional print materials such as posters and postcards. On the website, you have access to communication resources such as logos, graphics, and photos, as well as a style guide to a social media kit. Next slide. Streamwise Style Guide is there to help you maintain consistent branding by using curated language, colors, and fonts, as well as providing brand standards. That way, when the program gets used by community partners, the Streamwise identity looks the same throughout the region. In the style guide, you'll find links to logo files and open source fonts. The social media kit helps community partners by providing branded hashtags, photos, graphics, and a few example posts for inspiration. Social media accounts are owned by Streamwise. You'll also find outreach materials like the award sign, messaging, and tools to help communicate BMPs, events, and other happenings. Next slide. Streamwise exists both in the digital world and in real life. The digital side, we've got the website, which is public facing, while also providing tools and resources for Streamwise assessors. We have social accounts on Instagram and Facebook. And again, these accounts are owned by Streamwise, but community partners are encouraged to engage with each other using their own existing social accounts, as well as reposting social Streamwise content. Email campaigns are a great way to connect with people directly and highlight what's happening in your organization. Streamwise plans to send email campaigns seasonally. We encourage community partners to include Streamwise news and activities in their own newsletters. But all of this is really in support of what happens on the ground, such as site assessments, events, and handing someone a hat or a sticker after a field visit. These outreach materials are communication tools and can be used to share information about Streamwise and to continue to build awareness around the program. Next slide, please. These are the best practices around all of this stuff. Streamwise will update the website regularly with news posts. Then partners can share those news posts in social media and drive viewers to the website. Streamwise plans to also call on community partners to contribute to the Streamwise newsletter. On social, it's best to post weekly and engage, like, comment, share, and bookmark even more often than that, especially during peak season, and again, share blog posts from the Streamwise site. It's very helpful to track views and engagement. Continue to pay attention to how your digital channels and efforts are doing, such as Instagram shares and email opens. And that's it for me. On to the next slide.
Okay, I think for this section, Lauren and I are going to trade off. So we're going to be talking about the Streamwise QAPP, and then we're going to be talking a little bit more about the desktop atlas and assessment process, as well as the field data collection app, and sort of some of the nuts and bolts on how you actually do Streamwise assessments. So we'll give an overview of that. But first, Lauren will talk about Streamwise QAPP.
Yeah, so new this year, a requirement by the Environmental Protection Agency, which is where the Streamwise funding originates. All Streamwise assessors are going to be required to follow a quality assurance project plan. And so those plans, also called QAPPs, are designed to ensure consistent collection and application of quality data throughout the life of a project, and allow a project to be reproduced in the future or in other areas if necessary. So the QAPP was actually approved today, and after this training, we'll be circulating the documents out to all of the Streamwise assessors. The responsibilities would be to read the full quality QAPP. It's about 11 pages, and make sure you're following what the QAPP says during your field assessment and all sorts of data collections. You'll also be required to sign off for that. Each Streamwise assessor will attend all of the Streamwise trainings that are on your calendar, and you'll send in a cover page with that information back to me and add it in your final report that's due at the end of your grant cycle. Next slide.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. And then I guess I'll take it from here to talk about sort of the more nuts and bolts part of the process. And so, obviously we know it starts with an interested property owner. There's a desktop assessment done on the computer using an atlas that we've created for you. There is some field data entry that actually happens, or there's some data entry that happens before the field assessment. Then you do the field assessment once you've done some of this desktop work. And then it's an award or a technical assistance follow-up with the reporting. And then there's just some tracking and reporting that happens after that to keep track of what you've done over the course of a season or several years. And so without further ado, this will all be covered in much more detail in the desktop assessment training and the field assessment methods training. So don't worry if you miss some details now, you'll get them all in much more detail later. But first off, we start with this desktop assessment. We put together this Streamwise desktop assessment atlas that's linked on the Streamwise Champlain website. And basically this allows you to sort of like easily use an online geographic information system or GIS to do a bunch of measurements. You can see things like floodplain or wetland presence. You can use the imagery to measure buffer width, determine impervious cover within a buffer, all of those things. And we just wanted to put this together to make it easier for you rather than having to go out to a bunch of disparate, different websites to maybe gather that information. So that's the first stop. And then the second part of this process is actually using the Streamwise data collection app, which we've implemented through Fulcrum, to actually log into the backend. This is the browser view of the app, so not what you'd see on your phone, but what you'd see through Chrome or what have you, to actually enter some data. And so you can actually set the desktop assessment atlas screen up next to this screen and start entering the data. And so when you kind of click on those records, this is what you'll see. You've got 4 different sections. Obviously, desktop assessment, you're concerned with the first one, and maybe a little bit the second one, the background information. But you'll see that in the desktop assessment, you can enter things like what basin are you working in? What's the stream or river name if you know it? Average buffer width, canopy cover, parcel size, etc. And so that's really the first part of this process to start getting at, okay, how does this property actually conform or align with these 3 primary criteria of buffer width, buffer zones, and vegetation, and all of those subcategories. And notice too, in these subcategories, we either have a meets or a does not meet or not applicable. We try to keep this very simple. We realize that there are quite a few things to analyze in here, but we tried to make this about as easy as we possibly could while still collecting high quality data and ensuring that we're, awarding higher quality buffers. And so these primary criteria are really what drive the field assessment, and we've structured the app to look like that. So these are screenshots from the app, and you can see, we have those same 4 major sections: desktop, background, field assessment, and award status. And then if you click on initial field assessment, you get category 1, 2, and 3 of width, zones, and vegetation. And so we've tried to keep it very organized within the app so that you can click on buffer width, for example, and you get the category 1 buffer width dropdown. So you can start to enter all of the data associated with this, take photos, and you'll be asked, does this category meet or does it not meet? And so based on your desktop assessment, you already have an idea of the property, and now you're actually standing there in the field. You should be able to determine whether or not this property meets or does not meet. And then at the end, under award status, you can actually toggle width, zones, and vegetation, whether any of those categories meets or does not meet. If all 3 meet, then the app automatically says, yep, Streamwise award, this is a great property. And so that's kind of nice. And it also changes that status from to be assessed to award given. So that just kind of simplifies some of the record keeping and the tracking. So once you've done your field assessments, then you go with landowner follow-up. And there's kind of 2 streams in a way. There are just award properties where they're automatically in an award, or there are properties where they may need to do additional work. All properties are going to get a report if they get an award or not. The properties that may not get an award may have additional BMPs that they need to implement. And so we're actually working on creating this report form so that it's actually going to be quite drag and drop for everyone to use. And we're going to go into that a little bit further in some of these BMPs and further resources. Our impetus for this was, let's not reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of good resources already out there. And so we're going to try to leverage those to the greatest degree possible. So our best management practices really leverage existing BMP resources, while our technical assistance refers property owners to the most appropriate local organization. Now, in some cases, that may be your organization that you're working with, or it may be other organizations depending on the case. And so that's going to be something that you as the regional expert knows best, but we have put together some stuff, some resources for that. So again, there's this report template. This is really the skeleton of this whole thing, where we're going to have something where it's very easily laid out, and you can sort of start to take this sample language for summary reports and some of the graphics that are associated with that, and really start to copy paste and drag and drop some of this stuff. We're going to put together stock pages for common issues and solutions, so that in certain cases, you may be able to take an entire page and just say, this is the solution for this particular property. Maybe a small edit or revision is required for the particular case, but the idea is to streamline this as much as possible. And so again, common issues and solutions. We've got a lot of this sample language. We've also got links to other best management practice resources, such as establishing no-mow zones with Vermont's Lakewise program, or New York DEC's managing invasives in riparian areas. And so those will provide additional resources such as graphics, details, or step-by-step instructions. And so all of these resources live on the website, and they're very easy to access and put into this report template. And so that's, again, trying to streamline what could be a relatively complex process. We've also got this do-it-yourself riparian restoration and planting document, which again lives on the website. Some property owners may not need that much assistance. It may be fairly straightforward for them to actually just look at some of these resources and implement what's on those resources. So for example, under stormwater management, if you have a lot of development within the buffer that needs to be managed, like patios or things like that, we've got a couple options there to help people with that. So you can refer them to that resource, and then maybe even the specific detail or page. And finally, under this, we're sort of talking about, okay, if you're not, as the assessing organization, you may be the one giving technical assistance. However, that's not always the case. And we have broken this up regionally and by category. So, say in Vermont, if it's primarily riparian restoration or planting, maybe these are the organizations that want to take point. If it's stormwater management, there may be other organizations that you may want to leverage. And so we've done our best to lay those out by region and by topic, so that you can quickly find the best resource for that area. And honestly, you as experts probably know that to some degree already, but we wanted to make this as user-friendly as possible, for people who may not have the expertise, the depth of expertise that you do. And so again, just another example of how this is broken out by region. So if you're working in a specific county or basin, here's how you might find some of those resources. So I'm going to be a little mindful of time. We're going to quickly just talk about the general overall Streamwise yearly timeline. And so typically, we kick this all off in, around January, but really it starts when we continue, or when we start the trainings. And so the branding and communications training will typically happen in April or May. With the app and the desktop assessment training, following up again in April or May, and then the in-field trainings starting up in June. So at this point, you have an idea of how to message and how to do outreach. You have an idea of how to assess a property on the desktop. Now it's time to get out there while there's some new growth, so you can actually see the condition of the vegetation and the canopy and that sort of thing. And June is probably a good time to start doing that. Then there's the field season. Try to keep that pretty free until November, at which point we like to gather up all the participants, talk about how things went, talk about things we may need to change or reconsider for the program going forward, and then try to conduct all of those material updates by December. So that's the general overall timeline for Streamwise. So that's us in a nutshell, the Streamwise program. So really, thank you all for participating in this. Streamwise wouldn't actually be anything without all of you actually going out and doing it. Speaking for the project team and for the Streamwise host organization, Lake Champlain Basin program, we've put a lot of time and effort and work into this, and we're really proud of what we've created. But really, at the end of the day, it's up to all of you to actually make the program work. And so we're really happy that we have so many participants and that there's so much excitement around it. And we'll do our best to sort of honor your commitment by being equally committed and responsible to this program.